Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Johnny Deshaun Stringer. Stringer was shot and killed on Thursday, September 1st, 2005 in the 10,000 block of Harvard Boulevard in Gramercy Park, according to LA County coroner records. Davion McDowell and Makitha Kristen were subsequently arrested and charged with the murder. The following is the evidence at trial. On September 1st, 2005, there was a dice game in the driveway of Johnny Stringer, the murder victim. There were up to 20 men playing and observing at any given time, including Marshall, Pierre, Liggins, Combs, Palmels, and Kennedy. Estimates of the money on the ground during the game varied from about $400 to $2,000. At some point, defendant Kristen arrived and greeted everyone. Marshall knew defendant Kristen to be a member of the Block Crips. About 10 minutes later, Marshall heard defendant ask, "Is anybody strapped?" Liggins heard him say, "There's a lot of money out here, where the burners at?" The victim told defendant there was no need for anyone to be strapped because they were at his house. Sometime later, after defendant Kristen had gone, Marshall and Palmel saw an individual walk past the driveway and look. He then cut across the grass on the diagonal. The young man had a bag in his left hand and his right hand in his pocket. He said, "Break yourselves, give up the cheese," which meant he was going to rob them. Everyone stood up. The victim stepped off the wall where he was standing next to Marshall and said, "Who are you?" The individual began to take out his hand and everyone saw the gun. The men started to turn and run. Marshall and the victim were running in the same group, along with Liggins, Palmels, and another man. They climbed over a fence as the individual was firing. Marshall made it to a rear brick wall and climbed over. Pierre and Kennedy were both hit by gunfire. The victim was hit by 3 bullets. 1 bullet pierced his heart and both lungs, causing his death. Marshall saw the shooter run away. LAPD Detective Theodore Hammond responded to the scene and investigated the shooting. That evening, Hammond interviewed Marshall, who described the assailant as a male black carrying a bag, about 5'6" or 5'7", with wavy hair and thick eyebrows, and wearing a white shirt and black shorts. Marshall worked with a sketch artist to create a drawing of the suspect. Detective Hammond obtained a still image from the surveillance video cameras at a nearby restaurant. The still image, which was taken near the time of the shooting, depicted a black male with a white t-shirt and black shorts as he carried a bag across the parking lot. Ms. Jackson was a friend of the victim and used to date defendant Kristen. Shortly after the victim was killed, Jackson found defendant Kristen waiting for her when she arrived home at night. He told her that he needed to talk to her, but she had to promise she wouldn't flip out. He pulled out a gun and told her it was the gun that had killed the victim. Defendant told Jackson he had visited the dice game and asked the victim if they were shooting big money with no burner. The victim said they were in front of his house and they didn't need a burner. Defendant Kristen then went to 105th Street and asked if anyone wanted to hit up the dice game. No one wanted to hit up victim Stringer except one young dude. The young man rode with defendant Kristen, who parked on the street behind the victim's home. Defendant Kristen gave the young man a gun and a plastic bag and told him not to shoot because they don't have no gun. Defendant Kristen heard gunshots shortly thereafter, and the boy ran back to the car. Defendant Kristen dropped him off on 105th Street. The young man was defendant Davion McDowell. Jackson didn't tell anyone what defendant Kristen said because she was afraid of getting hurt. Eventually she told Palmels, and he said not to tell anyone. 6 or 8 months later, Palmels gave her Detective Hammond's phone number, and she called the detective. Detective Hammond is a supervisor within the homicide unit, and he investigated the shooting. He obtained approval from the city council for a reward, but he didn't post it. His investigation determined the identities of the individuals involved in the victim's murder in January of 2006. He didn't speak to Jackson until May 2006. Deputy Sheriff Ryan Live testified as a gang expert. He described the relationship of the Block Crips to the Rolling 100's. There are several other gangs under the Rolling 100's umbrella, including the Underground Crips. Defendant Kristen was a member of the Block Crips, and defendant Davion McDowell was a member of the Underground Crips. Deputy Live believed both the Underground and Block Crips would have benefited from the crime. Following the trial, the jury convicted defendant Davion McDowell of 1 count of first-degree murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, and 4 counts of attempted second-degree robbery. It also found true the gun and gang enhancements. The jury convicted defendant Makitha Kristen of 1 count of first-degree murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, and 4 counts of attempted second-degree robbery. It also found true the gun and gang enhancements. The court imposed sentences of 95 years to life plus 2 consecutive life terms. Johnny Deshawn Stringer was 17 years old at the time of death.